Here now, Trey Gowdy, former House Oversight Committee Chairman and Fox News contributor. Good to have you in New York.
Yes,
Mr. Gowdy, thank you very much for being here. So, your reaction to the missing of this deadline, and Jerry Nadler also has said, the chairman has said that they're asking him to break his constitutional obligation. And before you answer, I want to sneak in that sound. Let's watch that.
We need these materials to fulfill our constitutional obligations. Period. Our chief constitutional obligation is to hold the president accountable, especially in an instance where the Department of Justice says it cannot hold the president accountable. Those judgments must be made by Congress, not by a political appointee, the Attorney General.
What do you think about that?
I think he's right in this limited regard. It is Congress's responsibility to investigate malfeasance by the president. So Nadler, go right ahead. Mueller interviewed 500 witnesses. Jerry, go ahead and start. But the executive branch does not have to produce its work product so Congress can then use it against the executive branch. This subpoena deadline, I'll be surprised if Barr ever produces everything. And they can go to court, but they will lose in court. What you saw today is for a public consumption. It's a communications war. It's not a constitutional war. That's clear. The executive branch does not have to comply with arbitrary deadlines set by a co-equal branch.
All right. So tonight, one of the big questions has been whether or not the letter that we saw from Attorney General Barr accurately represented the principal conclusions in the Mueller report. And I think that, most of us have assumed, since we know that we've heard that Mr. Mueller has been kind of integral in that process, as had Rod Rosenstein, the Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General. But there's a piece out tonight that just crossed moments ago on the New York Times, which says that some of the investigators on the team, on Mueller's team, feel that the portrayal of the president is more positive than they felt in terms of the findings from all of their work over the past couple of years. What do you make of that?
Not at all surprising. You have 40 agents and almost 20 lawyers. I'd be shocked if they all were of unanimous opinion. Remember, with the Clinton email, Jim Baker disagreed with Jim Comey. He believed up until the very end that they had a case that was prosecutable. So I'm not at all surprised by that. The only thing that matters is whether or not you had sufficient probable cause to criminally charge someone. Whether you had some bad acts, some misbehavior. The good thing about the criminal justice system is we have standards. It's beyond a reasonable doubt to get a conviction, but it's probable cause to charge someone. And if you don't have probable cause, how close you came to it is irrelevant.
All right. So full transparency, you feel that if those arguing in favor of full transparency really mean that, they are also going to want to produce a whole lot of other documents that explain another part of this story.
Well, those arguing in favor of full transparency will not be satisfied with the Mueller report. They will want to see the transcripts from the grand jury interviews. They'll want to see the underlying data. I mean, this same game that's being played now, which is we don't believe Barr's summary, they're going to say we don't believe Mueller's report. We want to read these witness interviews for ourselves. So you're then in a position of relitigating the Department of Justice's decision not to charge someone. And if we open that door, if we begin to go down the path where you can investigate but there's not enough evidence to charge, and then be required to turn over all the incriminating evidence you found, then I don't know why we have any evidentiary standards
left.
Plus,
I mean, the process just goes around and around, because the process is that Congress has the right to investigate, to look into it, but they can't charge anyone. What they can do is sort of make a recommendation to charge, and then it would go back to the DOJ, who's already handled it and handed it off to a special counsel for 2 years, correct?
Or they can impeach.
impeach.
And if Adam Schiff is really concerned about collusion, the collusion that he hasn't been able to identify for the last 2 years, then he can have his own. I mean, Congress has a lot of power. Bring in the same 500 witnesses that Mueller interviewed, but don't take somebody else's work and then second guess it, micromanage it, and pick and choose parts of it you like and don't like to try to use it for political purposes. Hey, Congress, you're a co-equal branch. Go do your own investigation.
All right, before I let you go, I got to ask you one question about a story that we did last night with regard to the security breach at Mar-a-Lago. Does it concern you that the president's other home is also, a public place where people come and go? I mean, that's got to be a nightmare for the Secret Service, I would imagine.
I'm sure it is. I was there 2 weeks ago. in the interest of full disclosure, I'm a huge fan of law enforcement. I thought they did a phenomenal job. It's really hard when you have a president who likes to interact with people to keep him safe. I was stunned at how tight the security was when I was there, and in terms of secrets staying there, no one has reported how badly Lindsey Graham and Mick Mulvaney lost in golf to being the president. So that secret has remained.
I think you heard it first, though, tonight, folks. Lindsey Graham and Mick Mulvaney will be giving you a call after this. Thank you very much,
Yes,
Trey Gowdy. Good to see you tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
We saw it here moments ago now. The House Judiciary Committee voting to subpoena the full Mueller report. Want to bring in our headliner now, Republican Congressman Mark Meadows out of North Carolina, chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, member of the Oversight Committee. And, sir, thank you for your time. Let's just go ahead and right off the top get your reaction to the subpoena vote that just passed in committee.
Well, this was not a transparency subpoena. This was a 2020 subpoena. You know, you're seeing all of this play out. It's all political theater. It has nothing to do with really getting to the truth. How do we know that? Because I've been in the room with Chairman Nadler when we're looking at truly trying to let the American people see what happened with this investigation. And he's been the one that has objected over and over and over again. So, you know, let's take this for what it is. This is all about trying to disparage the President of the United States when his Attorney General Barr, he's working with warp speed to get information to the American people. It's really unprecedented in terms of his willingness to work with Congress, and yet this is how he gets rewarded. It's a sad day for Congress, and I would say it's a sad day for the American people.
Wow, and still leading up to this, this is what Adam Schiff had to say before this happened moments ago.
I don't think that he affirmatively is trying to misrepresent, but I do think that we are seeing the most positive interpretation that this hand-picked Attorney General could give. I accept Mueller's conclusion, and I assume Barr wouldn't misrepresent this, that he could not prove beyond a reasonable doubt the crime of conspiracy. But as I've said all along, there's plenty of evidence of collusion.
So he was directly taking on Barr's summary, and I see you having a reaction there, but I mean doubling down on his...
That is, well, I'll double down on my analysis of Chairman Schiff. For 2 years, he's told the American people that this was all about collusion and conspiracy. Now he's trying to change the definition because his hand-picked special prosecutor said there was no collusion, no conspiracy, you know, and now he's trying to change the definition because he didn't get the results that he wanted. Listen, we all know, Chairman Schiff knows, I know, when you look at the facts, there hasn't been even the FBI's agreement that there was any collusion dating back to the early days of this investigation. So, you know, we can spin it however we want, but here's the real reason. You got Chairman Schiff saying that we should take classified information and put it out there, which is a change for him. You got Chairman Nadler saying that what we ought to do is violate the law and give grand jury material to the American public. Both of those are at odds with previous positions that they've held.
All right, topic number 2, Lindsey Graham last night. He wants to investigate the investigators, as I'm certain you're well aware. He goes so far at some point to call for another special counsel. At a minimum, he wants hearings with James Comey. Here's Lindsey Graham from last night with Sean Hannity.
Millions of Americans believe at the top level of the Department of Justice and the FBI, they wanted Clinton to win and Trump to lose. They manipulated the law to let her off, manipulated the facts in the law to go after Trump. Former Director Comey will get to testify in the light of day.
Let's put that topic on pause a moment here. Jerry Nadler's at a microphone now. To the Hill we go. What's he saying at the moment?
In a lawsuit to force revelation to the committee of grand jury material, if necessary. Of course, we hope the Attorney General will do that first, but it was gratified to hear that Mr. Sensenbrenner and some others say that they agreed and that they would participate.
Mr. Chairman, what about the idea that this was an authorization of subpoenas and the idea that you're not going to send them yet? You still want to talk with the Attorney General? What happens between the authorizing vote today and what happens next?
Well, we're going to work with the Attorney General and for a short period of time in the hope that he will reveal to us the entire Mueller report and all the underlying materials, and we'll go to court to get permission to have the 6E material. But if that doesn't work out, in a very short order, we will issue the subpoenas.
What does that mean in a very short order? I mean, are you willing to do that as soon as this week to serve the Justice Department?
I'm just going to say very short order. Beyond, I can't say how many days.
Are you willing to negotiate any middle ground in terms of redactions?
No.
Of you're not?
No. The committee must see everything, as was done in every prior instance. Obviously, some material will have to be redacted before it's released to the public to protect privacy, to protect the various rights, but the committee is entitled and must see all the material and make judgments as to what can be redacted for the public release by ourselves. We handle confidential material all the time. We have facilities to do that. We make those judgments, and we're not willing to let the Attorney General, who after all is a political appointee of the President, make that substitute his judgment for ours.
Do you plan to speak to the Attorney General to figure out whether or not he will join you in going to court?
Well, I think I said we were going to negotiate with him. Yes, that you do speak to somebody you're negotiating with.
Does it feel strange all these years later to be holding up Ken Starr, sort of a model of transparency?
No, we're not holding up Ken Starr as a model of transparency. We're holding up the fact that that his entire work product was given to the Judiciary Committee, to the Congress, as was the case with Leon Jaworski, as was the case in various other situations, period. The quality of the work, et cetera, is a different question altogether. And again, the Republicans kept making the same fundamental, repeating the same fundamental mistruth time after time. When we were opposing release of some of that material 20 years ago, it was released to the public we were opposing, because that material, some of it was very salacious, was very private, involved private individuals, and should not have been released to the public. It had already been released to the committee, which was proper. What we're asking for now is the release to the committee, and that's not what was at issue 20 years ago.
You plan to go to court? You plan to go to court without the Justice Department to get the grand jury information?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mark Meadows is still with us, and sir, you were listening there. The distinction he is trying to make there is that the committee needs to see all the material, and the distinction at the end that we're not arguing to give it all to the public. Does the law allow the Attorney General, the way the law was constructed today, does the law give the AG the authority over what to release and what to keep private?
Well, the law does not do that. And it's interesting that we hear Chairman Nadler making that argument before the cameras, because when he was in a room with me, he made exactly the opposite argument. He says, oh, we can't release grand jury information. When it stood to benefit the President of the United States, he took a totally opposite effect. And I'll be glad to come on with Chairman Nadler and debate that before the American people when we talk about what he said in private and what he's saying now in public. But the law doesn't support that. Here's the interesting thing is, let's ask Chairman Nadler, let's ask Chairman Schiff if they're willing to join Jim Jordan and I to talk about the FISA release, to talk about Papadopoulos interviews that may be held in secret. Are they willing to release those? If we're going to be transparent, let's be transparent. And there's no law against making sure that the American people see those two things.
Congressman Meadows, what you also just heard there from Jerry Nadler, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, after this vote just happened, was making the case that, hey, we handle classified material all the time, and you've heard that through this process. So turn over the material in its entirety. We'll deal with that. We have experience with that. So I guess it comes down to, can you trust their handling of that material?
Well, here's what it comes down. Let's use the same standard that we've had for the last 2 years when we were in the majority. If indeed it's highly sensitive, then we let the Gang of Eight look at it. If it's other classified information that the judiciary can look at, many times I had to go to the FBI and in a SCIF to look at things in camera, not get a physical copy of it. Let's apply the same standards. But at no time were we ever able to look at grand jury information. And so, you know, one's about classified. There is a way for us to deal with that. The other is about grand jury, which we do not have access to, and we would have to change the law to have access to that.
Very interesting reaction there. Congressman Meadows, appreciate you standing by with us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.